Hello, everyone. I'm Shanta Jackson, and my purpose in life is to help people to help themselves and others. And I do that by serving as a resource, providing services, and then also producing thought provoking dialogue. And today with me, I have a special guest. Her name is Shalita, the Nonprofitista O'Neill. And Shalita, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Shanta.
Yes, and you are amazing. And the reason I say that you are amazing is at the age of 25, you started your own nonprofit organization. And within under 8 years, you raised over $2 million for your nonprofit. And how did you do that? Did you have coaching, mentoring? Did you kind of learn as you go? Like, how did that happen?
Well, it's a combination of all of those things because, at 25 years old, I didn't know what I was getting myself into or how to raise money necessarily. But initially, it was about mentorship and reaching out to people who knew more than I did about the nonprofit world and going from there.
Okay. And for today's discussion, I'd like to talk about, because I know that you're a consultant and you work with organizations and so nonprofits, new nonprofit visionaries, seasoned nonprofit organizations, large nonprofits, and you help them to either launch or grow. Tell me a little bit about the services that you offer.
Yeah, so like you said, I work with, I call them nonprofit visionaries or individuals who want to start a nonprofit or have already started an organization and trying to grow the organization. And I call myself a nonprofit strategist. I'm a funding strategist. So it's all about helping them bring it from concept to reality. So we do that through strategic planning, like a process, but that sounds so boring. I like to call it mind mapping or a think tank to help them really put structure to the idea, because a lot of times as nonprofit visionaries, we have a passion and we don't really know about the structural or the business side of it. And so I come in and help them build out that piece.
Okay. And what are some of so let's start from the beginning. I'm interested in starting a nonprofit organization, and I don't know where or how to start. What are some things that I should be considering? And then also, what are some common barriers and mistakes that people make or that I possibly can make getting started?
Absolutely. So I would first say check and make sure that there isn't another nonprofit organization that's doing the work that you want to do. A lot of people will have an idea. I tell my nonprofit clients that there's nothing new under the sun. Not that you can't start your own organization or that you shouldn't do it if somebody else is doing it, but you want to just make sure that there isn't somebody else in the community that has been doing the work for a while, or even maybe, if there's an opportunity to collaborate with them, that maybe there's a piece that they're missing that you have that you can collaborate. Because, as you'll hear me say, as we speak, collaboration is key. So first, check your niche, see what you do differently, check and do your research on what other organizations might be doing something similar, and if there's an opportunity to collaborate instead of recreating the wheel. But after you do that, if you're like, okay, well, no one else is doing what I want to do in the community, all right. The next thing I would say is be very mindful of your branding and your message to the world. A lot of nonprofit organizations will get started and maybe, I call it, you don't want to get pity from people or be seen as, that branding is so horrible, or I'm gonna help them, but I'm not going to tell my networks about them because I'm ashamed of them, so to speak, because they haven't put thought into the branding process. So really take your time, and think about, well, what am I going to do differently? Think about the name of the organization. You don't have to have a long run-on name. I'm doing the 7th Street Children's Services and Resources Communications. You don't want it to be something that you don't have to put everything that you do in your name. A brand is supposed to evoke a feeling when people see your name, and it needs to be consistent across your website and your logo. All of those things need to say the same thing. So I would say invest in your branding, and that's your message to the world. I would also say, of course, get a coach, because there's some things that you don't, whether it's me, whether it's someone else, a nonprofit coach, there's some things you don't know, and you don't know them. So you really need to enlist someone who can see those barriers that you might be about to encounter and help you to overcome those. So those are just a couple of things that I would, most important things that I would tell someone who's trying to start an organization.
Okay, and so how do I actually start a nonprofit organization? Is it like a business? Like is it an LLC? Is it a different, like what's the paperwork involved? And then also, what's the difference between a nonprofit organization and a for-profit organization?
Okay, so disclaimer, I'm not a nonprofit attorney, so I know there might be some law and code and section C of whatever, and so I'm going to say I'm not an attorney, but I will tell you from what I know and from what and the clients that I have worked with. So the difference between a nonprofit and a for-profit. So for-profit is really about, if you want to start, and this is, a lot of people that will come to me for support, they're like, I don't want to take orders from anybody else. I want this to be mine. I want to financially benefit from my idea or my entity. Well, then you should start a for-profit, because a nonprofit, you do not own that. Your board members technically, legally, are the owners of, so to speak, collectively for your organization. It's not you. So if you're wanting to personally be able to, like if you want to, if it's about money and wanting to create a legacy, generational wealth and things like that, which all are wonderful things, then you might want to start a for-profit entity. Also thinking about, you're thinking about who you actually, if your clients can pay you, if it's the service that or product that you're providing that people can pay for, that your clients, your audience can pay for, your customer base can pay for, then that's another thing that could lead to you being a for-profit, or you should consider being a for-profit. Nonprofit, what you want to do in the world is something that the public or a certain population of people cannot pay for. And you're going to be wanting other people to, you're going to want to raise funds from the public. So, then you want to be a nonprofit entity in that case. So the difference between the two is, with the for-profit, of course, you're going to be taxed. You have to pay taxes. With nonprofit, depending on the type of nonprofit, but most people that are probably watching this is going to be a public entity, 501c3, you're not taxed for it. So, and people who donate to your organization actually get a tax deduction or write-off for doing so. So differences, recapping on that, for-profit is your baby, that's your thing. You can make as much money, put in your personal account as you want to. People are paying for this. Not to say it can't be for a social cause, because there are social entrepreneurs, there are businesses that also give back to the community. You can do that, but you can pass your business down to your children, your family members, all of that. With nonprofit, you can't do that. You do not own this entity. It is owned, or it is governed by a board. So ultimately, down the road, if they decide that you're no longer in the best interest of the organization, you can be fired. You can be let go. It's not your entity. You cannot pass it along to your kids. More than likely, the individuals that you want to serve cannot pay for your service. You're going to be raising money for that. And if something were to happen and you need to dissolve the nonprofit, you do not personally benefit from this organization. Whatever assets you might have has to go to another charity or 501c3. You can't pass that down. So.
Okay. So your board can fire you. So I can start my own nonprofit, so you're saying it's not my nonprofit. So I can found a nonprofit organization. But when I'm finding this organization, so I'm the founder, and I could choose to serve as the executive director or president or CEO of the nonprofit organization, or could I choose not to do that and maybe just found it, serve on the board?
Yes.
Then hire someone else to be the executive director or the CEO or president?
Yes, you can. Absolutely. You can do that. And it just depends on what your purpose is or what you want your role to be at the organization. But yeah, you can most of my clients, of course, they are the founders. They want to transition into being the executive director, or they want to pay themselves. So they want to be able to raise money for a salary for themselves. So at that point, you cannot be the board chair and then also be a paid staff of your organization. That's a conflict of interest. So you have to make a choice. And there's some people who might want to, for the time being, they're getting things up and running, but they are planning to step back and let somebody else be the executive director. So it really just depends on what your intentions are for your organization.
Okay. Let's talk about building our tribe. And this is specifically, you mentioned coaching and mentoring, so that's a part of your tribe. But then also, what I'm getting at more so is your board. So how can you select your board? What are some of the roles and responsibilities? How can you establish that and communicate that with your board? And then also, after you answer that, and I can remind you of this question because it might be a question you might not remember, but how can you, what are some different ways that you can keep yourself included in the organization if the board decides that you're no longer a great fit to run it as an executive director?
Okay. So
choosing, and then how to keep yourself in.
So choosing your board or choosing your tribe, building your tribe, first you need to know who you are, okay? Because it's different. Running an organization and managing an organization is a very different skill set than it is to have a passion, right? Okay, we all have a passion, and you're a go-getter, you're a doer, and that's wonderful. But also know what kind of leader you are, because that's the type of people that you're going to attract. So I always tell my clients, you don't want to put the cart before the horse. First, make sure that you're clear on what it is that you want to do with your organization. Make sure that you've done your research, so you're not being redundant, all of those things. And then when you're reaching out to individuals, initially, if you're the founder, it's going to be the people closest to you. And I understand that. But I tell folks, if as much as possible, do not ask your family members, your spouse, your best friend to be on your board, because of the dynamics that are there, so that person or those individuals know you as in a personal light. And when it comes to getting things done with your organization, they may not take it as seriously. Plus, they're doing it because they care about you and they respect you, but they may not align with what, your passion, or may not, have that same level of passion for what you're doing. So when you are clear on the structure of your organization, and when I say the structure, you don't have to have everything thought through. Like I said, get yourself a coach, right, who can help you think, what's your mission? What's your vision? What are your goals? Make sure that you're clear on those things, because one, in order for you to bring other people into your vision, you have to be able to communicate what that vision is, at least on a basic level, so they know where they fit into it. And then maybe if they're not a good fit, they'll know someone else who they can recommend to be on the board. So just have the basics of what it is that you want to do. And although I said initially or overall, you don't want to have those types of relationships where you have your friends or spouse on your board, for paperwork reasons, we get it. You might have to have people who are that close to you initially for your 3 to 5 folks to be able to do this. But understanding that, with your bylaws are intact, the process of electing new board members, you have a vetting process in place for individuals, because not everybody who wants to be a part of your team should be a part of your team. So to be clear about that. So so I would say those things. And then also be very structured about, once you get to a point where you're like, okay, I want to go ahead and I want to get more board members, I need to move the work forward, then be structured with that. Have an information session. A lot of people will say, I don't know anybody. You do know people. You know people. It's just you haven't communicated this thing to those people to see if they would be interested or know somebody. It's all about who you know, but invite them to an information session, like a brief, meeting, virtual now until we can go back outside with COVID. But have have a meeting where you can bring them together so you can tell them more about the organization and more about what you're trying to do, and let them know up front what the expectations are for if it's fundraising, which it should be. And if people are saying, oh, I can't, people, what's the minimum that I should ask my board members to raise? I say it could be what you're comfortable with, but if it's lower than $1,000, then that's an issue. But if people are like, I can't, oh my gosh, that's too much money, then maybe they don't have to be on your board. They can be an advisor to the board or to you for that process. So those are the things I would say. Know who you are first, because those are the people that you're going to attract. Make sure you know exactly what you want from people and what your organization is going to be doing, so you can give them guidance. And then make sure that you invite them to a event or a meeting, so that they can get to know what it is that you're doing a little bit more, and try to steer away from immediate family members or people who you have dynamic, relationships with that could interfere with the professional side of the board work.
And how do I, as a founder, how do I position myself for longevity within the organization so that I could stay around as long as possible? What are some different
strategy? It's strategy. So I get that a lot too. And I'll say two things. So there's strategy with it, right? So we're talking about board members are humans, they're people. It's about relationship building. It's about, you conducting yourself in a way that's respectful. It's a mutual respect thing. It's you showing up for the organization. That's first, right? But then I've had board members in the past that, with all of that, things have changed sharply. Initially they'll come on and everything's fine, and then something changes and they're hostile. They become hostile, and that has happened to me in the past. So strategy wise, technically they could have, they could have let me go, but it was not in the best interest of the organization, right? When you have those, and plus it was an individual thing. You might get people on the board who shift like that, and they're toxic to the board, and then there's this rift between you and the executive director, and so it's about the relationships that you have, the individual relationships that you have with your board members. So it shouldn't be a situation where your board members are bringing other people on that you don't know or that you're not connected to in some way, shape, or form. You need to be at the forefront, as best as you can with the decisions that are being made with your organization. And it's about your relationships with your individual board members, and then how you interface with them collectively. So, there's additional strategy around that. But the biggest thing that I will say is that, and I tell my clients, don't let the fear of losing control or not having control or losing something or not, being ousted to be on your mind or to guide your decisions as it pertains to your organization. Because ultimately, if it's going to happen, it is going to happen, right? And it doesn't happen often, but if it's going to happen, that's just the thing that happens. What I tell my clients are, you are a creator. So if something like that happens, right, you take the knowledge that you have. If it is about you wanting to recreate an organization, nonprofit, or whatever the case may be, you can always create another one, right? So don't even start thinking about or be too engrossed with not losing control, that everything that you do is based on not losing your organization, or I want to be kicked out, or because then that mindset keeps you from collaboration. So not even just internally with your board members, but then you don't really trust people outside of your organization because you're always thinking in that mind state that someone's going to take something from me, or I can't trust, they're going to take my idea. And if somebody takes your idea, they don't have your special sauce. They don't have what you have. They can't recreate. They can't do it like you do it. So if they want to take it, they can let them take it. You don't have no control over that. But you operate in your truth and do business based off of authentic relationships, being respected by your board members, cultivating and nurturing the individual relationships that you have with them. And when you do those things, it's not likely that they're going to kick you out, because honestly, nobody wants to run your organization. People are like, I have a hard time getting my board members to come to meetings. They definitely don't want to be running your organization, so keep that in mind.
And tell me about fundraising. What should we know about fundraising strategy? What are some different tips that you could provide? And what are some maybe like some non-traditional ways to fundraising?
Oh my gosh, that is so complex. There's so much about fundraising, and that's why I hope people reach out. We need a coach. Come on through. Reach out. We can do some strategies.
Yes, hello, Shalita. Excuse me, Shalita O'Neill. That's your email. So your email is hello@shalitao'neill.com.
Yes.
And your email address is shalitao'neill.com. And her information is included in the description of this video. If you're watching on YouTube, it's also there as well. So fundraising. Give us the knowledge.
So fundraising, it's all about, it's about relationships, number one, okay? All of it is relationship building because you're dealing with people, with individuals. What I would also say is check your relationship with money and the conversation that you currently have personally with yourself about money, and because that spills out into everything else. So if you think it's hard to fundraise, Or if you think, oh my gosh, no one's going to give me this much money, or oh, if you don't even have a budget because you are scared to even have that conversation with yourself or your board, or about money, then you're going to have a hard time fundraising. So it's about mindset first, because it's plenty out here. It's plenty of money out here. Even though people say, oh, it's not, it's competitive. Those things are also true about competitiveness, but there is a lot of money. You see these organizations out here that halfway do things and they get millions and millions of dollars, because it's about strategy. It's about, they understand the relationships. It's about relationship building, who you know. So first I would start there. It's all, first check your conversation and know that the money is out there for you. You need some support getting it, but it's there. And then also what I would say is ideas around fundraising. So there's so many things that you can do before I get to that, grant writing. Because people will think, oh, grant writing, let me hire a grant writer and that's all I need to do. And they're going to go out here and find these grants and get them for me. And not to say that grant writing isn't important, because it is. But a proposal or a grant proposal is a tool. First, you are more likely to get grants from individuals or from organizations that know you or are at least familiar with you. So you need to, strategy wise, if you find an organization who funds things that's aligned with your mission, you want to reach out before. Your first contact shouldn't be a grant proposal, because they don't know you and they get a whole bunch of people that are sending in grant proposals. Try to reach out to the grant manager or the program manager, the person who is overseeing the grant, and set up a time to talk or meet when outside open back up, and really get to know. Well, know first and foremost, do your research on them and know what they fund. And you're not just going to cold call people and try and hope that they align with your mission. Know who your funder is, but go in and give them an opportunity to know more about your organization. And then, because people they fund people, right? You have a wonderful personality, or you get along with folks, people like you for different reasons, then you go in and they're like, oh, okay, I like this person. I like what they're doing. And then they'll tell you, oh, okay, well, submit a grant proposal. That's the tool after that. And when you do that, and they're like, oh, okay, I remember this person from meeting with them, and you're more likely to get a grant that way. So don't think that, and first, don't think that grant writing is going to be the way. I got to hire a grant writer, especially if you're just getting started. No, the money that's going to come to you is going to be from your immediate network, seed dollars. You're not going to go out here and apply for a federal grant and get a federal grant and you're just getting started. Those are extremely competitive. So that's what I would say about, as much as I can in the time allotted, to talk about the strategy behind it as much as you possibly can. Make sure that you put a face to a name. They put a face to a name. Even if you just send some information to them about your organization and then ask to set up a meeting, and then you virtually or whatever meet with them. And then they establish that connection. As far as ideas around fundraising, it starts with your board members. It really does. If you have 7 board members and you ask them to do a minimum of, or give a minimum of $1,000 to the organization, that's $7,000 right there. If you ask your board members to not only do that, but then go out and get 5 other people, let's just, put a number on it, get 5 other people to give $1,000
or raise $1,000,
right? Or raise $1,000, whether it's through Facebook, whether you have a software that you use. GiveLively.org. If you're a nonprofit organization, it's a free fundraising tool, peer-to-peer fundraising. It's wonderful. I use it for my foundation. Make sure that
GiveLively.com.
Give GiveLively.org. GiveLively.org.
.org.
Sorry, I said .com, but .org. And that way you can make sure your board members have an account with Give Lively, or that they're signed up with your fundraising campaign, so you can see what they're doing. But ultimately, first starting out, they're going to be the ones to open the door to other opportunities. Your board members, or people who they know, they know someone that sits on a foundation board, or they know someone who works at a company that has a corporate giving program, or they know someone who runs a business and they just want to give you $5,000. You have to mine your network, your immediate network first, to get the funds that you need to then be able to say, okay, I'm going to go and apply for this grant, this large grant or this traditional grant, because those traditional funders are going to be looking at, well, who else is supporting you? So it's a lot, but first, check your conversation about money, your mentality, your mindset about money. And if it's not positive, shift it so that, you'll be in the right mindset to get money for your organization. Also, tap into your board members. They are going to be the ones initially giving to your organization to get you started for seed dollars. And they're also going to be the ones to know others who are then going to open the door to other types of giving, like corporate giving. Also, if you have a program that you can package or a curriculum that you've written for your nonprofit, you can sell that or, sell your services as part of your nonprofit to other organizations who need that. Or you can partner with your state or local entity or agencies who have a need for the services that you're providing and have a contract with them. So diversify. Whenever you're thinking about funding, it's strategy. And I know it's a lot, but that's why you got to reach out so that we can do a customized funding strategy for your organization.
Okay. And I would just kind of like to put this out there that a lot of people are hesitant to start a nonprofit organization because they think that as an individual, if they serve as an executive director, that they can't make any money from that. And just 30-second response to that, because I got another question for you.
Okay. That's not true. Because if you look at Caesar B. Coleman or some of these other organizations, their executive directors get millions of dollars in salary. It just means in your organization you should not come to it with like a poor mindset. A nonprofit is a business and you need to run it as such, and it's okay to have an operating reserve, so to have abundance and more than what you need so that if something ever happens, you have something to pull from. So it just means that you personally, if something you don't, your family members, you can't pass that, any funds or profit or anything down from your nonprofit. Does not mean that you as an individual cannot collect a salary that is very good, very, lucrative.
So I'll make myself as an example. My business, Cause Engagement Associates, I'm registered as an LLC, and I elect to be taxed as an S corporation. And I'm interested in starting a nonprofit organization. Can my business start that, or like how does that work?
So again, I'm not a nonprofit attorney, so I'll make that disclaimer. But whenever you're talking about your nonprofit and a for-profit interfacing or interacting with each other, you need to be extremely careful. So businesses can start or have nonprofits, and nonprofits can also own businesses. Hybrid structures, but you need to get a nonprofit attorney that can help you with those things because it's very intricate, very involved, and you don't want to jeopardize your IRS status, your 501c3 status. So I would be very careful. But I have LLC and I have a nonprofit, but no money is exchanged between the two. There's two separate, for my nonprofit, I have a board, of individuals that do not get paid in any way. Or even if they, you can have individuals that are both part of both entities, but the entity cannot be interacting with each other, right? Unless you have an agreement in place, something in writing that says how the two entities are interacting. If your board has to approve that, and it has to be in the meeting notes. So if anybody ever says, oh, well, this looks really fishy, then you have it that your board has voted, and there's a paper trail everywhere. But what I tell my clients is just be very careful about them interacting with each other. So like you said, with your business, if you wanted to start a nonprofit arm, there has to be separate people. It has to be a board that's not, and those entities cannot be interacting or exchanging money. Because I'll say this, and I'll say it, and I'm not ashamed to say it, especially as Black women, and especially as if a person of color that's running a nonprofit, the things that we don't talk about are the perceptions and the optics of things that are very real, that people don't have the guts to tell you that they're looking at you through these optics. But as people of color, we're already under scrutiny, and people already think that we're embezzling money, even if it's at a subconscious level, they're always looking at us through this lens. So I tell my clients, just if you can, don't even have the entities interact with each other. And if you do, just make sure you have an attorney involved who has legal paperwork that explains how those two interact with each other, because you don't want people to try to say that you're embezzling money or you're funneling money or any of those things.
Okay. And what's the difference between so far it sounds to me like you're talking more so about a public charity, as far as with the board and the fundraising, and also the monies are coming from the public who supports your cause. Now, what's the difference between a public charity and a private charity?
So there's many different things, but the main things, public and private. So public, and again, I'm not a nonprofit attorney, so if a nonprofit attorney is watching, always.
I do the same disclaimer when I'm giving health information. I'm not I'm not a medical doctor. I am, however, I'm a health educator.
I'm not giving you legal advice. All I'm saying is, from what I know, and I do know about these things, but a public charity, it's the majority, more than 30%, like of the income or the revenue that you're going to be generating is coming from the public or coming from grants or that thing. And the tax structure is slightly different. So with the private foundation, typically private foundations, again, it's so vast. There's so many different types, but typically can be a family. If you're giving out money, like you're not necessarily going to be raising the majority of your money or asking for money from the public. It might be a family foundation that it wants to give out money to other organizations. They already have the money. The structure is slightly different. So some of the requirements around arm's length with your board members, not being personal friends or family or things like that, aren't necessarily applicable to a private foundation, because family members are on private foundations. Also, in some cases, board members can be paid, with the private foundation. So those are the glaring differences, without me trying to give you legal advice, because a nonprofit attorney will tell you. But most people, and then also depending on the types of money that come in with the private foundation, they could be taxed. Everything is not tax deductible, or donations made to private foundations. It depends on what it is, and may not even be tax deductible. So, public is typically what people go with.
We have an audience question from Ted Crawford in Brooklyn, New York.
Hey.
And after we ask this question, I want you to tell me more about your nonprofit organization. Okay. And then we'll probably close out the interview from there. So Ted wants to know, what is the paperwork involved from starting a nonprofit from start to finish, receiving nonprofit status? Like, for example, 501c3. Ted may have joined us later in the conversation, but can you? I don't recall you stating that.
No, I didn't. You did ask me that, and I did not get to that. So paperwork wise, and so first there's the articles of incorporation that you have to file with your state, and so there's that. And some states will allow you to do that online. So you can go to the Secretary of State or whatever, or he's in New York. Okay, so I'm not sure if they allow you to do that paperwork online, but I would look into that. The articles of incorporation is number one. Your EIN number, which is a number that's sort of like a social security number for your nonprofit, that you get that from the IRS directly. So don't pay for that. IRS.gov, you can go online and get your EIN number that's going to be associated with your nonprofit. I do that. File your articles of incorporation. You have to do those things before you actually can file for the 1023 either EZ form, which is, and I'll go into a little bit of detail about that. But so your articles of incorporation may take a few weeks, maybe a couple of months at the most to get back. Once you get approved by your state, you should also be applying as a charitable organization or charitable registration before you start to solicit funds in your state. So depending on your state, the rules are different. So I would just go on to the website for the state and it could be very simple to just Google articles of incorporation for New York City, right? Because they'll give you the form. They'll tell you what they want in it. You do that. You have your EIN number. Once you get your articles of incorporation back and you're approved, then you can file the 1023 EZ, which is the federal form to be able to be a tax deductible or be able to give tax deductions. And there's two different forms. So there's the 1023 EZ and the 1023 traditional form. And I typically tell my clients, if you're a strict public, organization, that you're not a church or educational institution or any of that, because you're a nonprofit, that's a public nonprofit. and you don't plan to make $50,000 in the next 3 years, then you can file the 1023 easy. It's a shorter form. You can do it in like 30 minutes, if that, online. It costs less. I think it's $275 fee as opposed to the $875 fee for the traditional form. And with the traditional form, you also have to, it's a longer form, and you have to attach your bylaws and different budget attachments and things like that to it. So it's a lot more involved. And I tell my folks, most times, you do not have someone or a funder waiting for you. Oh, as soon as you get that 501c3, I'm gonna give you $50,000. You don't have that, and I would do the 1023 easy form. It costs less, it's less involved, but you should still be prepared to have those documents like your bylaws. You definitely need to have your bylaws, conflict of interest forms, all of the things that you would typically send in with a 1023 traditional form. You need to have them, because if the IRS asks you for them, you need to be able to produce them. But those are the three main, I would say four because of charitable registration, but the three main forms that you need to file in order to become a nonprofit organization.
So you said articles of incorporation, my EIN, and then 1023 EZ. If I don't plan for my organization to raise more than $50,000 per year, or $50,000 within 3 years?
$50,000 per year.
Per year, right? Okay.
And honestly, with my clients, I walk them through, like, we go over a plan that, you're going to bring in more than that, but you're not a psychic. So initially, unless you're going into this knowing, and some people do that, some people have contracts waiting for them that are more than $50,000 or something like that. Unless you have that, I would do the 1023 easy.
Okay. And so let's talk about your nonprofit organization, Fostering Change Network. I know right now, so tell me about the organization, but then also tell me about the ambassador program. I'll chime in if I feel like you missed something.
Okay. Thank you, because I get to talk and I'll leave it out. So my foundation is like Shanta said, the Fostering Change Network Foundation, or the FCN Foundation. And we work with young adults who are in or from the foster care system, and we help them with their personal and professional development. And we do that in a number of ways. So we do it through mentoring. So we partner with colleges, universities to host mentoring circles, or to provide what we call our SOFI, support our foster youth program, to make sure that young adults that are in foster care, from foster care, that are trying to complete their educational program, get through it, and they have the support they need to finish. We also have the Global Ambassadors program, which if it's when I say alumni, so it's anyone who's been in foster care or lived with anyone other than their biological parents as a child, and they're 25 and older, and they want to start a business, or they want to start a nonprofit organization. The Global Ambassadors program is a 12-month fellowship to help them bring it from concept to reality. They get seed funding at the end of the program, and they also get coaching during that program. So I am a proud alumni of the foster care system. I aged out of foster care, and that's my passion, to be able to dispel that stigma about people in and from foster care, and to help them to be able to live the best life, or the version of their life that they would want, that maybe they didn't think that they could ever have as a child because of their circumstances.
So with the Global Ambassador program, from my understanding, so you said that age 25 or older, I don't necessarily have to be an alum of foster care, but I could be someone that lived and grew up not with my biological parents. Right. And I can apply for this program now. From my understanding, it's open.
Yes, it's open until June 30th. So you go to FCNFoundation.org and apply there.
Okay, so FCNFoundation.org. And for those of you who are watching past June, so we're in 2020. So June, right. The application is due June 30th, 2020. But this is something that you do. It's a rolling, like
it is. It is. And there's so many different ways to get involved. So if you are an adult that has lived, that fits that criteria, lived with someone, grandma, granddad, whatever, adopted, whatever the case may be, and you want to get connected to a broader network of individuals who are positive, that are doing great things in the community, I would still say reach out, because the FCN Foundation is a membership organization, and you can join. Right now it's free to join. And we have monthly webinars and networking events. They're virtual now. But we have that. If you want to become a coach to another alumni of CARE, or you want a coach, a mentor, a business mentor who can relate to your experience, you can get that as part of membership. And we have what's coming up in September, the Alumni Powerhouse Networking Conference. It's going to be virtual, but that's an event that we do every year where we bring professionals together to learn how to raise money for their organizations, or just to connect with other people who can relate to them. And we focus on healing self and self-care. So
okay,
and reach out regardless of what date it is. Just
yes, reach out. And Shalita, then, and you also have, I'm so proud of you, and so you also have the Visionary of Color Summit, the Visionaries of Color Summit, and you had the first summit in what was it, about last month? I can't even think what month we're in.
Oh my gosh,
it's Blur's Day right now. I don't even know the day. But you had the Visionary of Color Summit, and you brought in elders of primarily elders of color, and particularly Black African American. When I say elders, so elders who have experience running nonprofit organizations, and they gave insight and shared not only just professional advice but personal advice, and they shared their personal stories. Yes. And I had the opportunity to participate in that. So thank you very much. You'll have another one coming up. So just I want you to plug it. I want you to plug Visionaries of Color, Visionaries of Color Summit.
So I wear many hats, as you can probably see, everybody now. So the Visionaries of Color is a project of the Grow Charity Events. So I have a company, Grow Charity Events, where we help organizations who work with, we don't call it, the BIPOC or Black, Indigenous people of color, either work with them or led by organization or led by BIPOC individuals. And we help them with event planning. And the VOC was a manifestation of what we're trying to create in the community as far as it pertains to nonprofit leaders of color. Because, statistically, 92% of organizations are run by white people, and 8%, of people of color. However, disproportionately, those who are being served are people of color. So our goal with the Visionaries of Color is to marry the technical part of starting a nonprofit and things you need to do with the healing aspect and knowledge of self and knowledge of community and collaboration together. So our next one is going to be October 3rd. But reach out, you can reach out to me if you want more information about it. But yes, we'll be bringing together leaders of color to educate others, people of color, around what are some of the barriers they might need to overcome or avoid to be able to raise funds and to ultimately make a difference in their communities.
Well, thank you so much, Shalita. You've shared a lot of information and a lot of knowledge. And I know that everyone who is watching live, they've benefited, and this episode is going to benefit people 6 months from now, 12 months, 2 years from now, just as information. And I want to publicly say that I really admire you. I'm glad that we met. And for those of you that don't know, Shalita and I, we are members of a statewide association, a nonprofit association, and they have an annual conference. And Shalita was a exhibitor at the conference. And I walked up to her table, and we ended up sitting I sat at her table, at her exhibit for lunch, and we just connected. And Shalita and I have had the opportunity to collaborate professionally. She is a consultant. I am an independent consultant as well. And so whenever I have an opportunity, I hire other consultants, and then vice versa. And so this is a woman that I partner with, that I admire, that I trust, and that I highly recommend. So again, thank you, Shalita. And I'm so glad that I know you. I learned so much from you, and I look forward to continuing to work with you. If you want to learn more about Shalita or to connect with her, visit her website, ShalitaO'Neal.com, or you can email her at hello@ShalitaO'Neal.com. Again, I'm Shanta Jackson, and my purpose in life is to help people to help themselves and others. You can contact me or learn more about me at shantajackson.com. Thank you so much, and have a great day.
Thank you.